This podcast is with Will Burke. Will grew up in New Hampshire. In this podcast, we discuss Will's family's youth camp for boys that has been in his family for generations. We discuss his family's love for the water, sailing, boats, and adventure. We discuss Will's adventures and trips around the world. We touch on his career as a raft guide, working on a yacht, as a carpenter, and as a project manager, and more. We hope you enjoy this podcast with Will Burke.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Mountain Mule Transportation, located here in Bozeman, Montana. Mountain Mule is a private SUV and truck service, offering chauffeur services in all of southwest Montana. Whether it's your next skiing, hunting, or fishing trip, early morning or late night trips to and from Bozeman Airport, as well as weddings and private parties. No matter the occasion, Mountain Mule will get you there safely and on time. To learn more, visit mountain-mule.com and book today.
Tell us about, where'd you grow up?
Yeah, where are you from?
I'm from Moultonborough, New Hampshire. Yeah, so small town of about, I think it's 8,000 in the wintertime and jumps to about 30, 35 in the summer. So lake town, lots of summer homes, but that was part of the year-round contingent.
Yeah. That's a lot. That's a big jump to go from 8,000 to 30,000.
Big sky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I guess it is. Yep. Where are people coming from to enjoy the lake?
Yeah. So the lake that Moultonborough is on it's called Winnipesaukee. So it's the biggest lake in New Hampshire. The majority of the people that are coming up are from kind of Boston suburbs. So the northern part of New Hampshire is really mountainous. The White Mountains are up there. It's pretty awesome natural playground. And then the southern half is mostly suburban Boston suburbs within an hour and a half. And then the transition zone between those two is called the Lakes region. So that's where Moultonborough is. It's also where Holderness is, which I'm sure we'll talk about. That's the town where my family runs a summer camp back there. Yeah. But yeah, I'd say the majority of people that come from either southern New Hampshire or outside of Boston, because it's an hour and a half on the highway to get up there. So
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your family, how your family makeup, brothers, sisters, mom, dad. Tell us a little bit about that.
Tell us your earliest memory as a child.
Oh, nice. Cool. I'll start with the family piece. I think so. I have one sister. She's a year and a half older than I am. So she was 2 years ahead in school.
How old are you?
I am 30.
Right on.
Yep. So yeah. And then, so growing up, she was a couple years ahead of me. She was super smart, crushed school, was a volleyball player. Went to pretty big name school in Boston, went to Harvard. And so it was very much
it's a no-name school.
No-name school, one of those Boston schools. So she absolutely crushed. And so it was definitely a motivator. I would not say that I was not in the same camp as that. So definitely trying to meet some of those expectations for sure. But yeah, she was great. We were super close actually, all kind of growing up. We had overlapping friend groups in high school for a couple of years. And that's my sister. And then
what did she study?
She studied organismic and evolutionary biology.
Okay.
But yeah, she's super cool. She since school, she's spent a lot of time up in Alaska. So she worked up there as a kayak guide for 5 summers. And then now she actually kind of splits time between Alaska in the summers where she's a captain. So she'll run basically shuttle services and operations for this. It's a company called Shearwater Cove. They have yurts set up on this island out in the bay of close to Seward, Alaska. So it's excursions, stints, stayovers, stuff like that.
You said she's a captain. She's driving a boat?
Yeah. So she has her captain's license as well. And so she does that. And then her gig in Antarctica during our winter, their summer is she's a Zodiac captain / naturalist guide. So people that go on those cruises to Antarctica, she'll be like the kind of the one that takes them on the Zodiac tours and goes to the shore expeditions.
Okay. Where in Alaska did you say? What you said a certain bay?
Yeah, so it's Seward is where they're based, but Shearwater Cove, I think, is the name of is like the smaller spot where the business that she works for operates out of.
Do you go up there much?
You know, I've never been.
That's funny. I've got an uncle that's in Fairbanks, Alaska.
Really?
I've never been.
Yeah,
So
it's a bit of a hike.
Yeah.
I would love to go. I feel like
that's like way the fuck out there, man.
Yeah, it's a good haul. I think it's like you go to Anchorage and then there's maybe 2.5 hours by car to the coast, something like that.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a dope spot. I would love to. I've seen a bunch of photos and yeah, I heard a lot of stories, but the time that she's been up there is kind of overlapped when Brie and I have kind of been trying to just figure our shit out here, so haven't been able to justify a big Alaska trip.
Got it.
In that time. Yeah. Yeah, that's, I guess, like, that's kind of overview on, her name's Emily, by the way.
Shout out to Emily.
Shout out to Emily. And yeah, my mom and dad, let's see, how do I describe my mom and dad? My mom, I'll start with that.
Don't fuck this up.
Yeah, right. I know. We'll see if we send the link out or not. Depends on what we talk about. No, I love it. So yeah, my mom, her name's Lori. She, I guess, to kind of provide some context for my mom and dad, it kind of helps to go back a little bit to how like they met. So they, my mom was working as a singing waitress in Boston on a boat that would do like harbor cruises and meals and stuff like that. So she was a singing waitress. She'll be the first to tell you that she does not know how to sing and cannot hold a pitch, but was part of a larger group, which is pretty fun. And then my dad was also in Boston at the time, and there was some event, and I'm not sure exactly how my dad like was involved with it, but it got rained out and there's a bunch of extra food left over, so they essentially like they were going to chuck all the food away, and so they got together and were able to like redistribute the food and bring it to some local organization on that like first night that they met, which was pretty cool. And then that kind of sparked this mutual interest. And my dad was getting ready to ship out. He was working on a boat that was going to be doing a transit from, where was it? I think they were going from somewhere in New England to Bermuda and then across to Europe. And they were leaving in like 3 weeks. And he basically told my mom like, hey, we're going to be head down 3 weeks. If you want to come with, you're more than welcome to join. And so my mom, gotta remember to breathe. It's funny when you talk this much. Like hold my breath this whole time.
Take your time.
Yeah. So she decided to basically called up my grandfather, her dad, and was like, hey, I'm gonna go meet this guy on a boat. I'm gonna go sail for a while. So met my dad in Bermuda, and then they spent like the next 7 years sailing all around the world together until my sister came along.
Dude, that just gave me chills.
Yeah,
that's fucking awesome. Story. Wow. Talk about leap of faith.
Yeah, I think there was
that like worked out.
Yeah. It's a pretty cool. Yeah, and I guess that kind of gives context. So both my parents, like that kind of so I guess I don't know a lot about that time in their life, and I think this would be a really cool way to like explore that with them. Just like sit them down and say like, hey, what happened? Because they spent time in Europe. They went to like the South Pacific, and they worked on this massive sailing ship called the Sea Cloud, which is essentially like at that time was like the sailing equivalent to like a massive cruise ship, but with like all traditional sails, crew, like doing it that way.
So it was a cruise, but it was with sails.
Yeah. Yep. So, and yeah, I think like they spent a bunch of time doing that. And so my dad's background's in like, civil engineering. My mom was a geology major in school, but they kind of both were really involved with sailing for a long time. Excuse me. And yeah, I think it wasn't until like my sister and I came along that they were like, okay, I guess we have to kind of figure out something slightly different to do, because it's hard, like obviously hard to raise a family that way. So my dad was working on big like container ships for a long time while my sister and I were young, and my mom was looking after us. And then it's just like a lot of time away. Those schedules were like 6 months on, 6 months off. And you're like really out there. So wasn't great for being around while your kids are growing up. But I don't really remember any of that, to be honest, because that was only until I was, I think, 3 or 4. And then, so yeah, my dad now, or throughout his life, has spent a bunch of time working as a sea captain for like semester at sea programs for high school and college.
Mm-hmm.
And then my mom was a teacher for a while when we were growing up, and taught Spanish, and then went back to school when I was in high school and became a nurse. So she does a lot of like hospice care and end of life care as a nurse now. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
We gotta remember to ask people how their parents met. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing it.
Yeah, totally.
That is a really good question.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody's going to beat that answer.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah. I like to think it provides a little context for, I mean, especially for like how my sister operates right now, like both of like when she's in Alaska, and then when she's obviously in Antarctica, she lives on boats all year round. And like there's a section of my life where I was working on boats too, so it kind of provides like a little context for.
Mm-hmm.
You were starting to describe your mom too, right? Isn't that what you're telling us the background, kind of how they met? Yeah,
for sure. So yeah, my mom,
I guess you kind of did too. So.
No, that's good. I think like that covers like kind of what they did, but in terms of like who they are, I think my mom, I would describe her as like incredibly like empathetic and like thoughtful, and wanting to make sure that like everything's that you're doing okay, and almost basically like putting all of her energy into taking care of other people.
Motherly.
Too. Very motherly, yeah. So yeah, helpful, really helpful. And yeah, she's like super high EQ, I would say, like knows how to read you and how you're doing. And she was also an athlete growing up. She played 3 sports in college. So she was a field hockey, basketball, and lacrosse star, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she went to a small school in Ohio, and crushed out there. And then met my dad out in Boston shortly after.
So far, your family's got a good resume. You better tell us some impressive shit about yourself.
I know. It's pretty funny. Like, I'd say that's my mom. My dad, how do I describe my dad? So before he was doing the sailing stuff, my dad's family, I guess we'll start there. He is one of 6. And so his mom was like a nurse manager, and his dad, my grandfather, I don't exactly know what he did, but I think he dealt in like some sort of old school business, selling futures and something.
Your dad was a mobster?
Yeah.
No, his grandfather.
Sorry, your grandfather was a mobster?
Yeah, he did something. But he, so they had like 6 kids. I would describe my dad's family as like very regimented. And I don't know, I guess like now living in Montana and like kind of the lifestyle that I have, and that maybe that I grew up with, is pretty different from how a lot of my dad's side of the family operates. And I think like he was very much a rebel from his family. He was the oldest of the 6, and so he very much like kind of, he went to Notre Dame, studied civil engineering, did a master's at MIT, and then was kind of like, I'm not really into this anymore. I'm gonna go sail on boats and see what that feels like. So he's very much someone who like could do anything, but like has chosen kind of what he wants to do, I think. So I describe him.
That's a very underrated, admirable quality.
It's cool. It's it's definitely like, I definitely look up to him for that, for sure. And I think he's very, very thoughtful, very logical, but also has this like kind of twinkle in his eye, this like wanderlust and this crazy like he sense yeah. So he was a high school teacher for a long time when my sister and I were in school, just for the schedule and for the stability. He taught like high school math and science. But then since then, he's gone back to kind of working on boats part of the year. And when he's not, he's done like all these crazy bike packing trips that he's gotten super into recently.
Cool.
So he's done the Continental Divide a couple times, a couple trails in Colorado, a big one up in Alaska, and he'll just like go out and just kind of send it. Some of them solo, some of them with other people, but that's kind of been his most recent passion.
Where's
awesome.
where did him and his family grow up?
Yeah, they grew up in Buffalo, New York.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's like kind of where his family is still based. My grandparents are both like Rochester area, but yeah, upstate New York.
How about your mom, her side of the family?
Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah, my grandfather on my mom's side was a lacrosse coach at Denison University. So a small school in Ohio. He's actually got a pretty badass story that's worth mentioning. He was born, so this is my grandfather on my mom's side. So his name's Tommy Thompson.
What a name.
Yeah, Tommy Thompson. Called him Pop Pop.
Both cool names.
Yeah.
Tommy Thompson and Pop Pop.
Yeah. So he was born with spina bifida, which is this crazy like condition where you have essentially like a sac that fills with spinal fluid like at the base of your spine. And it can be like really like demobilizing for a lot of people. But like in his case, he was able to like still walk. And yeah, I don't like, it was something that he battled with for a lot of his life, like really limited use of his legs. But so he just decided to play sports that didn't require his legs that much. So he was a lacrosse goalie and was like an all-American lacrosse goalie. He was a wrestler, which is wild. And so even when he was like super old, he would walk around on 2 canes, and he was like the one that ran the summer camp for a really long time. And obviously as a summer camp with all boys, like there would be a bunch of young strapping counselor dudes, and on like carnival nights, he'd always challenge them to arm wrestling matches, and he was just like stacked.
So you win.
He'd win all the time. He's just holding himself up all day on his canes, and yeah. So that's my mom's dad.
Wow.
Yeah. So he was. Yeah, he's a pretty cool. He was like a really inspirational guy to me. He passed away when I was 18, and yeah, it was kind of like the first of like my grandparents to pass away, I guess. But like I was definitely super, super close and looked up to him a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
He'd always romp around on a 4-wheeler around the campgrounds. The camp's like, I don't know, like 90 something acres with a bunch of dirt roads. And so he would wrap around, and all of his grandkids would be like sitting on each wheel well and in the basket in the front and hanging off the back. And yeah, it was always, it's like a pretty vivid memory, going back to some of like the earlier memories.
But he wasn't changing the gears.
Wasn't. So what he couldn't. Totally, because it was a foot shifter. So what he did was he welded on like a piece of flat iron to the foot shifter and had it. So he'd, crank it with his hand. But yeah, everything done.
Hell yeah, he got it figured out. Tommy Thompson. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go way back.
Cool.
What was your earliest memory, or like what was one of your earliest memories?
Yeah, I think where I first start to remember things is like right when I was kind of around like 4 or 5. And I think one of the reasons for that is, so around that time, my dad had been working on like container ships for a while and decided he wanted to spend more time like with us. So he had come back, him and my mom put our house up for like rent for the year. So dropped the dog off with the grandparents, rented out the house, bought a trimaran, a 37-foot boat. And we were going to live on it for the year. And so we got on it. Actually, I don't remember. I think it was in Maine in September, and sailed south. And my first memories are from that trip. Mm-hmm. So we sailed all the way down like the East Coast, kind of stopping along the way in different ports. Spent the winter in a little town called Georgetown in the Bahamas. And like like picking up conch shells, hanging out in hammocks as a little dude, like a little 5-year-old dude. My sister was 7. And then in the springtime, sailed back north and took like a year off from school. We were homeschooled. So we had these like plastic tubs with all of our school stuff in it, and we'd do school for like an hour, maybe in the morning, an hour in the afternoon, and then the rest of the day was either exploring, going out in the little dinghy, or swimming, doing all that kind of stuff.
Other learning.
Boat stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's like, yeah, when I think about the first actual memories, I think those are a lot of them come from that trip.
Okay, cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was kind of getting that when I was asking where your folks were from. And I just wondered, because you live here, your sister lives in Alaska, and kind of like, where does that come when people kind of up and leave and live all over the country? And I think you kind of answered it with that question.
Yeah.
That must have been pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds very romantic.
Yeah. I think
sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, as a kid too, like I think it was. I mean, I think I was totally like, yeah, I was soaking up all the fun parts of it. I can't
You wouldn't know any different as a kid.
Yeah.
You know, like
you're not comparing it to like any other reality.
Well, yeah, but I also would say like sailing is a shitload of work, and it's like you can't take a break, right? Because like you can't not sail. So it's, you know, somebody's always, at least my understanding, somebody's always up and like captaining the boat, right? Whether it's 2 a.m. or 5 a.m. or whatever. And so then you like switch duties. So I imagine your mom was like on night shift, or your dad was on night shift, and then they would switch, and then they're taking care of you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
so like you guys are like, yeah, it's cool. We're 5 years old. Whatever. Your sister's like 6.5, right? She's and your mom and dad are just like grinding it out, and it was probably fun for them too. But it's probably a lot of work.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on, and I think they were able to set it up where there were only a couple times where we had to do long enough passages where they were, you know, up 24/7, but. Yeah, I think that's probably one of my clearest memories from that trip is on the way down when we went from the Florida Keys, or like somewhere in Florida, popping over to the Bahamas, and we did a transit that was, you know, whatever it was, 20 hours or something sailing, and big full moon, and like I remember being a kid and waking up in the middle of the night, and you know, you see like the red lights that are on in the chart room, so to keep your night vision. And we came up on deck and like it's full moon out, and you like look over the rail and it's just crystal clear water, and it's only like 20 feet deep, but you can't like see anything around you. And so there's like stuff on the bottom, rocks and starfish. And
it's crazy because I think about how far away you are, but there's only 20 feet deep in that spot.
Yeah. Yeah, that was wild. As a little kid too, you're just like, what is happening? This is not on this earth. But yeah, like to your point though, I think they like that with their background, I think they came from working on ships where, yeah, you were standing watch, and like you were 4 hours on, like 8 hours off, or whatever the rotation was, always going. So yeah, and that's kind of like the crazy thing is, yeah, when you're at sea like that, and I can only imagine with them having us as kids, like, you know, stuff's happening, like priority number one is the boat, because if you don't have that, then you're really out of luck. So you kind of have to be like, all right, kids, like hunker down. I know you're feeling sick, you're throwing up, like kids, take care of each other. We have to go do this thing on deck, like in the rain if you're dragging anchor or whatever it is.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, it's so cool. You think about like helicopter parents now, right? And think about like your parents couldn't be like helicopter parents on a boat, you know, like that, where it's like, well, fucking hold on.
Totally. Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons why my sister and I ended up being so close, is we like had so much time. We shared a bed for the whole time. There were only 2 bunks on the boat. So we were like, yeah, sharing a bed. I was like farting, and my sister was like hating me for it.
Your sister was farting too.
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't remember it as much, but yeah, we'd have like these little toys, and we just get super creative with like the games that we'd play. And I wasn't a big reader, so I like had to come up with other ways to entertain myself. My sister was a big reader. But yeah, it was like, I can't imagine. I mean, looking back now and knowing like, I guess the conditions that my parents like were in when we were that age, just in terms of like still like very much figuring out career / what they were doing / how to, make everything work. To be able to be like, yeah, we're gonna rent our house out. It's gonna be fine. We're gonna buy this boat. We'll sell it at the end. Maybe like borrow some money to do that up front. And then we're just gonna like, we're gonna eat a lot of pasta, a lot of canned fruit, and just like kind of maybe spend a couple $100 a month and do it for however long we want to until we want to come back. But trying to think of doing that right now is like, it's so much respect to them for being able to do that.
It's pretty badass.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
it'd be badass if you're doing it without kids.
Mhm.
With 2 kids.
Yeah, and I think that's like, I think what resonates with me with that is just like betting on yourself. I think that's like my dad's. I don't think he would say that that's his mantra, but like, I think he's like, yeah, like we can do this because I know that I can like figure this out at the end, and then like we'll be able to make it work no matter how this goes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So New Hampshire, when did your folks buy this place? You mostly grew up in this place?
Yeah. Yep. So same house my whole life. Let's see, they got it.
Sorry, this house that they rented out was the one in New Hampshire?
Yep. That's right. So yeah, I think they got the house like maybe when my sister and I were like 2 and 3. We were living in like my grandparents' basement for like the first 3 years of my sister's life, first year and a half of mine, and then transitioned into this house. It's great. It's a little like, it's on 44 Birch Lane. It's like a little dead end cul-de-sac with a bunch of woods like butting up to the back of the house. Cool little attached garage. I remember when we first moved in, I have like these memories of like bright orange countertops and really dark cabinets, like very 70s.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. And that whole house is like kind of transformed over the however many years, 30 years that my parents have been there. But yeah, that was home growing up.
They're still there now?
Yeah, they're still there. Yeah. I think that was the idea, was that they'd be there for a little bit and then move on to something else, but it's worked, and it's their home base.
Okay. What kind of a kid were you growing up?
Oh, great question. I haven't thought about myself as a kid in a while. I would say early on, I was really competitive. I would have a really hard time with like board games. I have memories of like playing Monopoly and things not going well and basically throwing tantrums and giving all of my money to like my cousin who was playing and none to my sister, and that would essentially end the game. I remember the board game Sorry, like getting knocked off the board and just like losing my shit. Yeah. Anyone relate to that? Yeah, that was me as a little kid for a long time. And like same as sports, I think playing elementary school, like in elementary school it was soccer and basketball, and it was like locked in, like fiery, competitive, impatient, I would say. And yeah, which is kind of funny to think about, because that's like, yeah, not exactly where I am right now.
You mean you're not like chucking the Sorry board across the room?
Something deep down, I think, still wants to. But yeah, but I would say as a little kid, that was like, I was really competitive, really active. I couldn't read, and honestly, like still have trouble sitting still to like read a book.
Yeah.
To be honest, I would like doing things and being like around people way more. And I think like, yeah, I didn't do super well in school. Like I mentioned, like had a lot of trouble reading. Didn't get into a ton of trouble, but was like by no means like a standout student.
It's interesting. Can we dive in on the reading piece?
Yeah.
So like there's like all, especially when you're a little kid, Like there's all kind of reasons why like that might be the case. First off, let's be honest. Little kids are not supposed to sit in a classroom all day. Right. And so like they're like, oh, well, like Will can't concentrate. No, Will's 6 years old.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about like, do you think it was because of other factors? Meaning like, you know, it could be hormonal. It could be that like you were embarrassed, that, like you didn't know the words, and so then like you got self-conscious about reading, or you know, do you think that's like were there other factors that would, if you were to think back, like maybe prevented you from enjoying reading or becoming interested in it? Like maybe you were afraid of it.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I think I remember like having a page in front of me and kind of like, I guess maybe the times that I was reading were always like with other people, and I would be reading and like people around me would be like turning pages and I'd just be like
on the same page.
I am so far behind. So I think like what I would do is I'd be like so focused on what was happening like around me that I'd be like, well, fuck, like, okay, I'm not actually going to read this. I'll skip it.
I'm just going to turn to the next page.
Yeah. And I think like that was really hard for me to get past. And then if I was reading like, and then I just wouldn't choose to do it on my own. I think maybe if it was something that I had like chosen or was able to do or interested in doing by myself.
Maybe. I was going to say, it could be shit that you just weren't interested in at all either as well.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean,
that's so interesting.
I still have trouble like reading with shit that I don't find interesting.
Yeah.
Unless I have to like, if I'm like, it's either got to be something that I'm like really interested in learning about, or it's something that is like tied to my evaluation or performance or school.
Gotcha. I mean, it's interesting. You're talking about like social pressure there of like, oh, somebody turned the page, and so I'm supposed to be on the same page as they are, or I'm supposed to be reading as fast as they are. That's just social pressure, right? And so like you were feeling that as a little kid. I remember, it's funny that you say that because I remember doing the exact same thing as a kid. And I'm like, well, how the fuck are these kids reading this fast? You know, like I'm on the third sentence. I'm not on the third page, you know? I remember that. And then also I remember being terrified, being called on to read like a paragraph. I remember being absolutely terrified. One, because I hate public speaking. But then two, like I wasn't a good reader. So like then I'd get made fun of, or like I couldn't finish the sentence. So then I think I became like really subconscious or really conscious about like self-conscious rather about reading. It wasn't until probably like high school that I started to get comfortable with reading. I like hated it.
Yeah.
Up until I was probably like 17 or 18.
Do you remember what you started reading that you enjoyed?
No,
it was just something. Yeah. Okay.
No, I think my confidence level went up. And so then I like, I also like, I guess maybe that was like when I started to stop care. I wasn't caring so much about the social side of it. It was more about like, hey, I'm going to read this page and I'm going to retain the information. Like the important is like, are you going to retain the information? I guess I felt like students were like skimming through it. And you're like, okay, yeah, you kind of read that, but you don't remember anything.
Yeah.
So what's the point of reading it? Anyway.
Yeah. No,
I don't know. So I just wanted to dive in on that. Like, I think there's a lot of things that happen when we're little kids that they stay like that for a long time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, hard to disassociate from that or unlearn that.
Yeah, I mean, you could take the exact opposite, and it's some other kid that sucked at kickball. And so they fucking sucked at sports the rest of their life because they weren't good at it when they were 5. You know? So there's like the opposite, and where you're like, dude, I was a great athlete. I don't need to read anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
sorry. No, don't apologize. That's spot on.
Okay, so struggled with reading. Sounds like you just like struggled to put your attention into the classroom.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like, I don't know, maybe part of that was coming from that boat trip where it's like, okay, yeah, you can like get through a whole year's curriculum by going to school for an hour and like a couple hours a day, as opposed to like sitting and being in the classroom with all this. Like, I think that definitely set me up to be like, what is this? Like, I can do this in
an hour.
An hour.
Tim has never been to school, so
yes, and I'm laughing thinking about this because I was homeschooled my whole life.
Cool.
And I signed up to take some college classes, and I sat through 4 classes. It was, I don't know, it was like
4 classes in one day.
Yeah, so it was like over the course of maybe 4 hours or so, 4 to 5 hours. And at the end of the day, I was like, absolutely not. There's no way I'm doing it. I dropped all the classes and did everything I could to get most of my money back.
Yeah.
And I just I could not cross that bridge. It's like, there's no way.
Yeah, but I remember you telling me that, like, I mean, it's like a motto for life, I think. Why would you do something in 5 hours that only takes you 30 minutes? Like, don't stretch it out and don't like delay and don't procrastinate and like, and don't like, yeah, just don't stretch this whole activity out. You can fucking be super focused, get in, get out, 30 minutes, 1 hour, whatever it is, and get it done. And I think I struggle with that. I always struggled with that, I guess, when I got into the working world, because I feel like school teaches you to like drag shit out. And then sometimes employers do too. And you're like, why are we dragging this out? Like, I got all kinds of other shit on my plate. Let's do this right now. So I remember you saying that, like, I literally I would do my schoolwork for 1 hour, and then he worked on a farm.
Hours, yeah.
And so it's like, I don't have time for this shit. I'm running a farm here.
Yeah.
And I will say now, if there was like, I'd be interested in taking classes if it was things I'm genuinely interested in now. There was nothing then. I was just kind of figuring out what the hell I want to do with myself.
Totally.
But I still, I think it seems idiotic the amount of years it takes to get a degree, and then you can take the summer off, and it's just like, it's very drug out.
It's really interesting when you were the last couple of years, you were talking about going back to junior college.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, but I don't want to take the summers off. And matter of fact, I don't actually want to take the nights off either. And I'm like, yeah, if you want to do something, right? If you actually want to study that thing and you want to get good at it, why would you want to take the nights off and the weekends and summer break? You would do it all the way through.
I don't barely retain anything. I just need to immerse myself.
Yeah, but it makes sense. It's like, if you want to play sports, 7 days a week. You don't want to like, I'm going to take the summer off. It's like, no, you want to play all the time. So why wouldn't you want to do that with a topic that you really enjoy and you're really interested in? So it's interesting that school's set up that way.
Question, I guess.
No, can't. These questions can't. Only one way.
Go for it. What's your question?
Is there something like that? Is there something that you feel that way about now for either of you guys?
Damn it.
About what?
Just like something that if you could dedicate like days, nights that you'd want to push through. And
it's funny because it was a year ago. I interviewed with an electrician company, and they're like the internship.
Yeah.
Essentially 4 years. Go to class 1 night a week. Pay really wasn't that great, and I'm like, you could like speed that whole process up and get that in a year. I'm like, oh, they'll kind of commit to this, and once you get a year in or so, you're like, I'm going to see this through. But I don't know. It's like, that'd be 4 years to like drag. I'd do that if I could do it in a year. I probably would have done it. There's no reason you couldn't. You should go to class 4 nights a week instead of 1 night a week.
But that's not allowed.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So it's like that's a great example. I don't know, but as far as like things I would do right now if I could, Kyle, you got the mic.
It's not easy. It's not.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Is there anything you would?
I don't. Well, I'll let Kyle answer or ruminate first, and then I'll think about it. Unless you want me to.
It's a good question. I would say that I'm trying to figure that out now. Like, I'm working pretty damn hard at it. I'm like what I want to do next, and I probably yeah, I mean, this podcast isn't about me, but I'm struggling to like, I want to make sure that the next thing I choose, to really put my heart and soul in is that like, I feel like it's right, because I feel like I've been I guess if I were to look back over the last like 15 years, I kind of feel like I've been distracted. I've been on like somebody else's path. And fine. So like I figured it out that I was on somebody else's path. And I don't want to end up on somebody else's path again. So I don't know what it is, but I am pretty intently trying to figure it out. And that is a mess of a process.
You can also tell us. You can also answer that question after you tell us like what you got going on now with your life too, or answer it now, and then would any.
Yeah, no, I think it'll provide some context for the sinuous route that my job life has taken. But yeah, to be honest, I also don't know. And I don't. There's nothing that I have right now that I'm like, fuck yes, all in. Like I want to chase this. Yeah, which is kind of like a little wild sometimes.
How do you know? So
Unsettling.
Yeah.
When your parents were sailing with you guys as kids, how old were they roughly?
Yeah, they would have been like mid-30s.
Because I don't know, it's very easy to look at kind of everyone else and look that they've got their life figured out. But you could even look back at your own family or anyone and be like, man, they were trying to figure out what the hell they were doing too. And it's kind of everyone. Like you're definitely not alone in that. Like I'm still trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing. I think we all are.
Yeah. No, and that's like, yeah, and I think what I guess maybe I'm just like thinking out loud here, but maybe the way I think about it now is just like, okay, what okay, let me phrase it like this. What I've been trying to do more of is like focus on like smaller bite-sized chunks of time. And I think like where I like kind of tend to spiral and get in like a bad headspace is when I'm like projecting out like really far in advance and honestly like trying to figure out like, okay, what's my forever thing? Like where am I supposed to like live? Like what am I supposed to do with myself? Those are like the really big questions that get me like, yeah, like thinking about there's no way I'm ever going to get to wherever that space is. So that's one of the things I've been trying to do is like focus on smaller chunks and be like, okay, what can I control? Like, and I think for me, a lot of that has been like, okay, I want to surround myself with good people. Like I feel good being here, like in Bozeman in Montana. So I'm going to take the steps that I need to make that a reality and kind of like reverse engineer my job to fulfill that criteria of being here and being around like in the environment that I feel good and feel me.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's go into this.
We're going totally backwards though. How long have you been in Bozeman?
2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
5 years roughly.
Yeah. Around
there. Is that when you got here?
Yeah.
That was the same year I moved here.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Rock on.
Yeah. Who knew? It's like everyone knew COVID was coming.
Yeah.
What if you could brag about yourself a little bit, because I'm going to ask you a question that forces you to do that.
Cool.
What are you exceptionally good at, or what natural ability do you have that's like that you think is rare and kind of unique to you? Not to say there's not other people in the world that don't have it, but it's like maybe if there's like something really unique about you, or you're just like exceptionally good at it or in tune to something.
Yeah, I think I have an answer, and I think the reason I have one. Yeah, okay. Maybe I'll answer it straight up first, and then I'll provide the backstory. But I think I take pride in my ability to listen to people, and to find common ground, with pretty much anyone, and like make people feel heard and feel seen, and like they can talk to me, and I can at least like attempt to see where they're coming from or understand what got them there.
Is that something you've always kind of had, or you had to build that skill? Not that you haven't gotten better over the years, but have you kind of always had that skill as a kid, even?
That's a good question. I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's something that I mean, so like working at like Camp Deerwood is the camp that's been in my family for a while, since like 1945, and I think being a counselor there and like meeting like all of your campers and like having to remember where each of them's from, what each of them is like into, like what their interests are, and connect on like with them in that way. I think that's where I developed that skill.
That
and
makes
like,
a lot of sense.
yeah, and that was like where I was like, oh, like this feels good to like have to like be able to listen and ask questions and like engage with this person.
That made me think of a question, and I know Kyle asked you too. But have you ever thought of like how you could use that skill or quality like for something in your career? And at the same time, it sounds like you were at least there at the camp.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
that's probably like a deep question to think about
No.
too. So it was a thought I had.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, I think so. I'll like kind of two parts to this. I think one lane is very much that like, you know, like thinking about Deerwood and like its path going forward.
Can you just pause for a second?
Yeah,
Explain Deerwood.
Yeah.
Explain how it's been.
We're
been
going
your
all
family.
around. We're going all over the place.
Yeah.
No, this is
Yeah,
good.
but you've mentioned it several times, so like let's just
Yeah,
kind of give the background context
totally.
there.
I think that's great. I think that's like a part of it's like very much how I identify. It's funny when you asked where I was from. Like, my first instinct was to say Holderness, which is where Deerwood is, because that's like when I go back to New Hampshire now. We go to camp, and it's only like 20 minutes down the road from my house. But yeah, so Camp Deerwood, founded in 1945 by my great grandfather, so Tommy Thompson's dad. Yes, right after World War II, first summer had like 20 kids. Now it operates. It's a sleepover camp for boys, ages 8 to 15. It's on a lake, so there's a whole bunch of activities. There's 2 sessions, each 3.5 weeks long. So it's very much a like sleepover camp. You get dropped off on day 1, your parents come back and pick you up
3 weeks later.
3 weeks later,
Okay.
yeah. So yeah, you're in cabins of 14 other kids your age. Couple counselors to each cabin. Pretty unique in that the campers have like full freedom of choice over what activities they do during the day. So there's like 4 1-hour blocks, 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, which are like activity periods. So campers can go to different activities, whether it's water skiing, sailing, canoeing. There's a forge, wood shop, archery, pretty much everything you'd want to do as a kid.
Fucking
Pretty
sick,
damn
dude.
sweet camp.
Hey, we're going to this camp.
Yeah, we should. So yeah.
Sounds like an awesome time.
Could you imagine you're just a kid there? You're like 8. Like, do they have a way to like call home to parents at anything? How does this like?
I wouldn't call my parents. I'm
Yeah,
like, I'm having the time of my life. Get out of here.
Like, you just
Don't
never
come pick
know.
me
Like,
up.
24 days. Like, see in 24 days.
Yeah,
You're 8 years old.
Yeah.
Shit.
it's pretty wild. There's yeah, I think as a kid it's I mean that's what shaped me. So like growing up, I was there like summers every summer growing up, and that was like kind of like where my emotional social cup would be like refilled each year. It'd be like, go to school, like get through fucking school so I could go back to camp and like see my people, like be in my place.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that like yeah, you basically have it's structured such that like the kids can go to activities and like pass classes and like earn points for their respective teams, and there's also like a athletic component to it where the Blues and the Grays compete against each other, and at the end of the summer there's like a big banquet, and the winners announced. And yeah, a lot of cool like tradition, but like really just like layers of role models. So like you have your youngest campers, and like they look up to the oldest campers. Oldest campers look up to the younger counselors. The younger counselors look up to like the ones older than them. So there's this incredible like I don't know, like yeah, mentorship structure that's built into the camp. And yeah, I think like I said, like that. Yeah, so Deerwood's an incredible place. It's it's like very much home. The people there are like very much family.
Is it in your family still?
It is,
Cool.
yeah. So right now it's run by my mom's cousin, and then my uncle was
Okay.
operating it for a while.
Okay.
Until recently, yeah.
Okay, so I interrupted you. You were talking about what's the future of Deerwood.
Yeah. So, I think it relates to your question too, and thinking about like how I can bring that skill set into like the work that I do.
Yeah.
And so that's something that like it's a place I'm passionate about. It's like people that I care about. It's a like cause that I believe in. And so that's one way that I think I could definitely like channel that for sure.
Yeah.
The flip side of the fun coin is that like there's also this part of me that like feels very relieved from having come west and like left like the East Coast behind, and like kind of paving my own path a little bit and like building a life out here with my partner Bria, and like seeing what we could start like if I didn't follow in the footsteps of my family members before me that have run camp. So yeah, it's like both those things are very real, and yeah, it's like that's something that like I carry all of like the amazing skills, and also just like I'm always kind of wondering like, oh, like am I doing the right thing by being out here versus pouring into this thing that I know that I care a lot about.
Mm-hmm.
I got two questions. What's the craziest like story you've got from that camp, and what's your best memory from that camp?
That's a great question. Okay, so one crazy story that's pretty fun happened when I was a counselor. We took the counselors in training, so basically the oldest campers, like 16-year-olds, on a 3-day or 4-day 3-night canoeing trip down the Connecticut River that separates New Hampshire and Vermont. And so there aren't a lot of established campsites on the river. So you kind of have to either like camp in like a farmer's field or like find like these little scraggly spots along the way. And there was one day, where we were cruising along, and it's getting kind of late and water was pretty low. So we were like, oh, okay, there's a great like cobble bar. We'll just pull up on there. It's like a couple feet up from the river. Shouldn't be a problem. Like we'll just camp here for the night, get out early, have a campfire, like cook dinner, crash. And then like right around midnight, I wake up or right as we're going to bed, it's like starting to rain a little bit. I'm like, oh, okay. Like it'll probably take like a while for the water to come down, like through the tributaries and like get down to where we are at this watershed. Like we'll be fine. Fall asleep, wake up around midnight, and it's dumping. It's like really raining. And it's like, well, like I said, hopefully it takes a while to get down to the lower elevation. Hopefully we'll see how it goes. And then I wake up and it's like lights kind of peeking through the tent, and I like go to like reach for something, and it's just like there's just like my sleeping pads floating in water. And so I'm like, oh crap, like get out. Basically the water's risen up to the cobble bar. As I'm getting out of the tent, we're like waking the campers up. It's not like chaotic or anything, but it's like, oh shit, like our campsite's flooding.
Yeah. This is early in the morning.
This is like at like 5 a.m. Yeah. So not a super crazy story, but pretty memorable. Pretty fun. Like
were the canoes were all right?
Canoes were all right. They were all flipped upside down. I think we lost like a crock. And that was it. So nothing wild, super wild. I mean, there's a lot of like, aside from that trip, there's a lot of like late night counselor night off shenanigans that were probably pretty crazy too. Maybe not for the podcast, but
sure.
Like that was one of the coolest parts was you'd have like these amazing, like really rich experiences like with the campers, like camp is designed to do. But then you'd also like have these awesome bonds that were like built between just the counselors and the time you spent at camp, but also the time that you got to go away and drive up to Montreal for a weekend or go to wherever. So
cool.
So that might be both memorable and.
You said it was your great grandfather that started it?
Yeah.
Do you ever Did he have a kind of like a reason why he started it, or some sort of?
It's a good question. I don't know that I'm sure he did, but I don't know that I could recite it back to you. I think I do remember hearing stories of him basically like beg, borrow, and steal from anyone he could to like get the land.
Mm-hmm.
I think he like took out like basically bet everything he had on it and took everything he had out and opened up lines of credit and just like made it work. I guess when he acquired the land, it was like owned by I think like Yale even owned it, but it was a summer camp called Asquam back in the 1800s, and then that had gotten shut down, and then it was like basically Yale was like the steward of the land for a while, and I don't even think they'd seen it, so they sold it like sight unseen to my grandfather.
So there was a camp there.
There was, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, way back. I don't think there's a lot of written like history about it, but some of the buildings, like there's this old stone schoolhouse that's still standing that was built during like 1883, I think it was built.
Wow.
Yeah, so a bunch of old shit, old buildings.
Cool. I was just back in the East Coast. That's where I'm from, and like I've been out here for like roughly 5 years, and you get used to it, but all the buildings, everything are so old back there.
Yeah,
there's so much more history. Just because that's where kind of cities and everything were developed, is on the East and West Coast out here, and there's like so many old buildings and stuff like that you don't see in Montana as much.
Totally, so. I know that's a very real thing, and even like going into cities, I was like back east, like going through New York and Brooklyn, like walking around recently for a wedding, and just like seeing how like, oh yeah, these streets were designed not for like several lanes of traffic, like, and everything's been built like up, and you have to like operate in such like tighter confines. It's really remarkable.
Yeah,
it
is kind of funny. I've never thought about that in New York City. Just like the size of the buildings and the size of the streets.
Yeah,
it's
totally different. Where back east did you grow up?
Like upstate New York, like
cool.
Like a little south of Albany. So
okay,
not way up there, but yeah,
cool.
Yeah, nice. Not far. Yeah, I don't know if there was like, you probably answered all my 7 questions that I threw into there. So he was telling us something else because he told us about the camp. But what were you telling us about before that?
I think you were asking where I could apply that like listening.
Oh
yeah. So and I guess maybe so the flip side of that, I think I might have found something that kind of like works in an indirect way right now. It's like I started a new gig. Well, I guess I'll preface by saying like I've like bounced around a lot in terms of what I've done. Like I studied geology in undergrad, and then like came out here for grad school and like did a master's in that, and then upon finishing was basically like, okay, I want to live in Bozeman. Like how can we stay here? What can I do? And yeah, I guess that's actually how I started working in like construction, was right after school finished. Went back east for a little bit, traveled for a little bit, and then came back to Montana and started framing just like residential homes, working for a contractor up on Spring Hill on a project up there. And that was like a skill set that I'd always wanted, a skill set that I was really stoked on. And I guess to your point about like, maybe like about being like obsessed and like wanting to go like all in and like learn as much as you can about something that was my crash course in like in framing and in carpentry, and like really was stoked on it and learned.
How long did you do it for?
Well, for him, I was working. So I was working for him for like 2.5 months, and that was like kind of January, February, first part of March.
Worst time of the year possible to be framing outside in Montana.
Yeah, but it was cool though. I kind of like wore it as a point of pride a little bit. I felt like I definitely had to prove myself, so I would like go out. I remember like driving to work consistently and it being in like the negative teens and just being like, all right, I'm gonna just like fucking layer up and like stay moving and like hope my fingers still work. And
kind of hard to snap lines at that temperature.
Yeah, it's just shoveling snow at that temperature.
Yeah.
But so that felt really good. And like Eric's the general contractor that I work for. He's a really good guy and like taught me a ton. And then this kind of opportunity, like right away, I knew I really liked it, but I was kind of trying to think about kind of what I was talking about earlier. Like, okay, what does this look like long term? Like, I can do this. I like this. I'm like interested in it. But I got to figure out a way that I can like preserve my body a little bit, because I was like 15 pounds lighter than I am now, and like struggling to keep weight on, and like it was tough. And like eating as much food as I could and just like still dropping pounds. And I was like, okay, this is awesome, but how can I do this in a slightly different way? And so I had a friend visit, and she connected me with Hannah Brew, who was Hannah Van Wetter at the time. And so Hannah had just started a startup called Foothold, which was a modular construction business based out of Butte, Montana. So they had a shop, and they would basically build these, small modular units. A lot of their customers were in Bozeman. Pop them on a truck, drive it over, crane it onto a foundation, that whole drill. And they were looking for like a project manager, an on-site project manager, to help them out. And so I took a job with them, like met Hannah, watched one of their sets, and was like, oh yeah, I'm in. This is sweet. And it kind of provided a little bit more of a direction in terms of like, okay, this is something that I could do longer term. So I spent 3 months kind of commuting to Butte, like going in there on Mondays, crashing for a couple nights, and they're like, it's basically like they're like model house, the first one that they built and that they set. So I crashed there for a couple nights a week, just like hanging drywall, getting like doing all the processes that were occurring in the shop, just to like get familiar with it. And then eventually come summertime, they were starting to set a lot more houses. So I was kind of like the on-site, like helping run the crane sets, and then all of the button-up work that happened afterwards. So structural connections, like awnings, decks, interior finishes, and then kind of also getting to like, in addition to that sort of stuff, we were also like acting as the GC for a couple projects. So got to get exposure to like City of Bozeman permitting and like that whole process, and working with different subcontractors to like prep those sites, and excavation, concrete, all that good stuff on the front end.
Are you still with those guys now or no?
Unfortunately, they are. The company went under.
Oh, really?
Which I think I would be had they kept going. They shut down. I think like just trying to offer like a fixed cost modular build, with all the swings that were occurring in construction pricing, like that. It was just they were trying to hold still on, or like hold fast on their pricing. And then when it got to the point where they
when did they
spring of 22.
Yeah.
So
I mean, 2020 and 2021 were really bad years to price anything. Yeah. So if you were trying to hold your price, there's like no way.
Yeah. And so
I mean, nobody was holding their price in the fucking country.
And so I think that was the thing that like when they eventually realized that, like, and were like, okay, we have to bump our prices up. There were a few key contracts like at the front of the pipeline that pulled out. And then there were some like cash flow issues, and I think it just kind of that's like my understanding of it, at least. But
it's just like extremely volatile time to be in the construction industry.
Yeah.
Not to say other industries, but like I mean, nationwide prices went up like 25% in like 9 months.
Yeah.
In construction.
Yeah.
Across like all. Yeah. So, the only way you can honor your price is if you've already ordered the material and it's basically already delivered, right? If that's not the case, well, then you really can't honor your price because deliveries were so problematic that your order wasn't really worth anything anyway. Like you might have placed the order, but you couldn't get the shit. So it was like, well, I can't put the work in place anyway. So how can I hold my price?
Yeah. It's too bad. I think
maybe they'll go again.
I mean, I don't know. I think both Hannah and Sam are pretty happy to maybe have some distance between them and Foothold at this point.
Okay, got it.
But that being said, I think they did everything they could, and they were just the best to work for. Shout out Hannah and Sam. Love you
Nice.
guys. Yeah,
Cool.
only positive things to say, and they were super kind. They kind of sat me down and gave me a heads up, said, hey, this is what's coming. We've got a spot if you want to stick around, but this is what it's going to look like, and understand if you got to make moves. So that was spring of 2022. Then I got a job working as an account manager for a company in town that does laser methane detection, which was really cool. Really super positive product. Basically getting contracted out by oil and gas industry clients to detect and quantify their methane emissions. They're super cool product, super cool company. Not a great cultural fit. I think when we talked earlier about the difference between doing what you need to and the time that it takes to do it versus sitting in a chair for 8 to 10 hours a day. I was getting my stuff done really early and asking for a little bit more to do, and they're kind of just take your time, do the work, stay in the chair.
Oh man, I couldn't deal with that.
Yeah, well,
if I had the work done and you're not going to give me more, I'm going to walk out of the door.
That's
got it. So you left. I just that doesn't make any sense. Why are you it doesn't make any sense. You're going to pay me to be here.
Sounds like a state job.
No, it's just either give me more or so that I can also progress in the company, make more, get promoted, whatever.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm out of here.
And I think that's something for me. I think in hindsight, I was pretty impatient, but also I knew I could do it, and I was doing a good job, and I was hey, I'm ready to take on more for all those reasons. I'm trying to make being in Bozeman work. Just my partners in school for massage therapy. I'm I'm here and I'm ready to roll. Feed me. I'm hungry.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a great fit. So
got it.
Yeah.
Moved on.
Got 3 weeks off to go on a Grand Canyon trip in the springtime. Had a lot of time to clear my head. Had a pretty sketchy swim that occurred on one of the bigger rapids, and was kind of
woke you up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's all right. That would have been a bummer if that had been it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was. I came back and we parted ways.
Got it.
And then so long-winded way of getting to what I'm doing now, which is essentially my job is talking to people now and facilitating conversations. But for a company that it's essentially under the umbrella of a consulting firm.
Okay.
Our the guy that runs our company is essentially describes it as we help business people make friends, and we host these roundtable conversations where our clients say hey, this is what we offer, and these are the people that we're trying to reach. And then our role is bringing those people to a virtual meeting, and we interview them beforehand, and then their kind of interests drive the conversation, and I'm a facilitator between those prospective clients and our clients, which are the big consulting firms.
Nice.
So you do this is all digital or in person?
So the meetings themselves are virtual, are digital. Okay. Yeah. The office is in Bozeman. It's called Profitable Ideas Exchange, or PI. But they've got a spot over by Map Brewery, or in the Guild House.
Okay, yeah.
Northeast.
Yeah, that big building.
Yeah.
So somebody, what does your client look like? What do they reach out to you guys for?
Yeah, I think so. Some of the big ones that, I think this honestly is a super new space for me. So I'm still learning the language very much. I think they're a lot of big East Coast consulting firms that might offer information technology solutions, or cloud service solutions, or business automation solutions. So they're basically selling their consulting services to executives at these bigger companies. So I guess one example, there's one partnership, like our two clients partner together to put on this one group. One is like a big cloud service provider, and the other is like a traffic management systems technology provider. And they basically use us to go out and recruit these all like the heads of state transportation divisions, and convene them in these roundtable discussions where they can discuss topics of mutual interest. And then our clients are able to be in on those conversations and offer their insight, but at a base level, really develop relationships and in like a non-salesy environment.
Okay.
So that's kind of that's the pitch.
How'd you get this job? How'd you find that?
Yeah. Just following people. So I think like Hannah, who I mentioned at Foothold, her partner had works at Pi, and had kind of like, I had like heard about Pi tangentially, like from a couple different people in Bozeman, and just as like a really good place that, there's like, I mean, the kind of banner benefit is like they take 2 weeks off, like paid every year between Christmas and New Year's. And so like the whole company just kind of shuts down. Everyone does their own thing. And I think like,
I thought you were going to say during hunting season.
that'd be amazing. That'd be a great pitch. But yeah, I think like it's just a company that's like good people, like really awesome benefits, like realistic modern work schedule that can be like, when you get your stuff done, you're done, and you can work remote, you can work in office, like whatever makes sense.
Just perform,
just do your job,
just perform.
Yeah. And like for me, what was really attractive about it too is that there was like a very clearly defined like growth structure for me. Like, and so like going back to like my last job experience, it was like, you're going to be in this role forever. And this one was like, all right, here's the map. And then it's up to you to navigate it and like pick your pace. So yeah, I think for me, I definitely chose the job. I think it marked kind of a transition of me like trying to find something that was related to what I had studied or like what I was really interested in, and more like finding, okay, like what do I want out of my job? And then what job can I find that provides that? And then how can I like, if I'm checking these boxes of being able to be in Bozeman, like being able to make enough to live here, having flexibility in where I work so that I can travel, like having these other bonuses, like benefits, like that was kind of the criteria, much more of like a holistic approach to it. Is kind of how I sought it out, I guess.
That kind of goes back to what we were talking about with, having taken 4 years to get a degree that could only take a year, but kind of like your more practical structure of working from home sometimes. There's a lot of things that were learned from COVID that you waste so much time every day driving to an office to be there when you don't need to be there. Someone just told me that Elon Musk loves the idea of people working from home because he just thinks it's so much more efficient. It lowers his overhead, lowers their commute time. They get to spend more time with their family. And like, if you look at it in that, I know there's some people say there's negatives to not going in and seeing people and collaborating face to face, but there's so much time wasted. And just the kind of system that we've had set up of 40 hours, you got to be somewhere, you got to be in an office. That's probably cool, being in that more kind of modern approach to.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, I don't know, maybe it's just like maybe it goes back to like seeing the other kids reading a few pages ahead. But I think like there's also like at least for me, there's like an underlying anxiety when you're sometimes in some places, like in some workplaces, where if you're like done with your work or you like finish something and you have like a few minutes, like there's like the unspoken pressure that you should be like look like you're working, or like fill that time, as opposed to just be like, I'm gonna go take a walk, or I'm gonna like, if you're working from home, I'm gonna like hang out with my dog for a few minutes. I think like if at all, like if you're able to promote that and like recognize that that's like part of productivity, it can be like really powerful. But I know like I've definitely felt that in some work environments where you're like more worried about like what it looks like you're doing than what you're actually doing.
I've thought about this in carpentry, and maybe you've had these thoughts or have some input, but how do you be as efficient as possible? You know, you're getting paid well and you're trying to get this house built, but also be doing really high quality work and finding that there's a sweet spot. But if you're rushing too much, you're going to be doing half-assed work. But if you're trying to perfect every last thing down to the, like, you're going to be so inefficient that, so I don't know where that like sweet spot is in all industries, not just carpentry, but that's the easiest one for me to see because it's an industry I'm in.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. And like where I think to build on that, I think burnout's like a huge issue too. Even in like, yeah, like in whether it's construction or whether it's in your job, like working so fast and like basically pushing your, I think there's a natural tension between that, like pushing hard and like getting stuff done efficiently and like in the time that it takes to do it versus like always pushing and never giving yourself like a chance to like eat lunch or like take a break. And then you push so hard and you're like high output for a really like short amount of time. And then you kind of burn. At least like that's kind of, that's something I've noticed in the jobs that I've had is like full throttle right away, like make a splash, make an impact. But also like more recently have started to kind of think about, okay, how can I be here in a year, and how can I like make sure that I'm adjusting my output to make myself make it like a good investment for me and a good investment for like the company that I'm working for.
God, what's your input? This is your industry too.
I mean, I
both
think
of them, like the trades and you work from home.
I mean, I think people are so fucking inefficient. It's ridiculous. I mean, yeah, I think it's.
I saw the wheels turning when we were talking.
I would say most of the people that I worked with, a lot of them they're really good at what they did on one hand, but at the same time, like so inefficient. Yeah, I mean, I always took the people that I worked for several years, like kind of drove this into us. I went through like a program that was like grooming superintendents. And so the theory was you always have to have 3 places for a crew to go. So you schedule the job so that a crew, let's just say it's a 5-person crew, that 5-person crew on any given day has 3 locations that they can work a full day. Why is that? Because you can bet that one thing's going to go wrong. And so now they can't work here. Like let's say they can't work in this corner. Okay, so then I've planned out that they could work in this corner, and if something goes wrong on that day, that they could work in this corner. And if that goes wrong, then they still have another corner to go to. And so like that rule of 3 is that if you have 3 places to go, the odds are that like you're not going to have that 3 problems, right? All in the same day. And so then you always have a crew. That crew's always efficient at working on something that they have the material for, that the drawings are done, like they're prepared for. And so that's how I was like trained to set up jobs. So it always gave you a double backup, right? Yeah, I think at least on the construction site, right? Like everything is tangible. You can't tell me a single thing like that you're actually going to build that isn't tangible, right? It's materials, it's people, it's equipment, like it's real. And so I don't see any reason why you literally cannot plan out a job day for day for every day from the day that you start it to the day you finish it. Now, you don't, like you were talking about, like looking at things in small chunks. You don't look from here to the end. You look like, okay, what needs to happen over the next 30 days? And then what needs to happen each week over the next 4 weeks? And then you plan out those 4 weeks day for day. And then you adjust every day. And then you can tell people like when they should be on the job down to a given hour. Yeah, you can get super, super, super efficient, and that's when it gets really fun. Because it is so much fun working on a job site that's extremely efficient. People want to come to work, and they're like, "Hell yeah!" Like people love predictability and things like that. So, yeah, it can be so much fun, and I think it should be. And you can make so much fucking money when it's efficient. So much money. People can like double or triple their profit when it's efficient. So, yeah, that's my thought on it. Working from home, I think it depends on what your job is, right? If you can collaborate effectively and do it from home, then it's just like kind of all about communication, telling other people what you need from them, what they need from you. But I do think that there are certain things that are way better in person. There's something about meeting people in person that you cannot replace. And I think construction has a lot of those key elements. Like I would say, like when you're going to sign a contract, you should have already met in person with people. You should have talked about like the contract. Those are big ones. Change order negotiations that should be done in person. Not that you can't have phone calls, but like, because I actually think they become more efficient. Things become more efficient when you're doing it in person because you're like, all right, you're being reasonable, I'm being reasonable. Let's settle, right? Let's find a compromise. Those kinds of things, like they don't go well over the phone. So,
yeah.
Where'd you meet your girlfriend out here?
Yeah.
Wife.
Yeah. No, all good.
Both.
Yes. Eternal girlfriend.
Your once girlfriend, now wife.
Yeah. We met in Costa Rica, actually.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I had just graduated from undergrad from school in Vermont and was like stoked to do anything but school for a while. So I like hit up some of my friends and we're like, you want to go to Central America for a little surf trip? One of our friends had a relative that ran a surf and yoga hostel in Jaco in Costa Rica called Room to Board. And so me and my buddy Ian, my buddy Alex went down. Like we graduated in February. That was a mid-year start. And so, yeah, went down like February 7th or whatever, down to Costa Rica, showed up, and then, yeah, walked into the hostel. My buddies Ian and Alex weren't working for the hostel. They were just gonna be down there for a little bit before they started their jobs. But I was like kind of locked in for 3 months, and started the same day as Bria did. So she had been down in Costa Rica traveling for a month, and then had also found this hostel to volunteer at. And yeah, we like kind of fired up the same day. The deal was you'd work 24 hours a week and you get free breakfasts and half off other meals at the hostel, which was pretty smoking deal for a 23-year-old graduating with like $1,500 in his bank account.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, basically like was like, all right, we'll see how long we can stretch this out. But yeah, Bria and I met the first day, and then our trainings were like, our shifts were 6 a.m., 6:30 to 1. So the early shifts. And that was like basically checking everyone out that were guests the night before, communicating with hospitality in Spanish, which was fun. And basically like, yeah, figuring out all the kind of morning routines of the hostel. So we had a lot of like, Bria and I were like sat at the reception desk for like 3 days straight for 8 hours and just got to know each other really like deeply, right? Like from the start, which was cool. Yeah, that's how we met.
Where's she from?
Awesome.
She's from Chico, California.
Okay.
Or no, sorry. She's from Redding.
California.
Redding,
Okay.
and then grew up part of her childhood in Chico. Yeah, her parents are both full teachers. Her dad was a like principal and superintendent, and her mom's a school counselor.
So how do you guys know each other?
Soccer.
Oh, out here.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah,
Right
soccer
on.
in the summer. Yeah. Bria's really, really cool. Should be, we'll have to try and convince her to come on and chat.
We'll get her.
Yeah, we'll get her. We had a very cool, awesome couple months, like 2 months working at the hostel, and then we went and just like traveled around Costa Rica and Panama for 3 weeks at the end of our trip before coming home. We had both kind of gotten out of pretty long, like 3 to 4 year relationships, like pretty soon leading up to that trip. So at first it was kind of like a hesitation to do that. And then we just kind of like threw it all out the window and went for it. And it, led to an amazing couple months in Costa Rica, and then both of us kind of going our separate ways for the summer after that, and then kind of reconvening and starting this awesome chapter of like, we worked a winter in Telluride as ski, like as lifties, spent a summer up in Idaho raft guiding, then traveled to Southeast Asia.
Where in Idaho?
We were based out of Stanley, but we were guides on the main Salmon River.
Okay.
Yeah, so doing kind of like 6-day, 5-night overnight rafting trips through the Frank Church Wilderness up there. And we like did that for a summer, saved all our money, then went to Asia and spent it all, which was really fun. We were there for like 4 months, going through Thailand and Vietnam and Philippines and Bali. Got engaged out there, which was rad, and then got a job through one of our river guests working on a yacht in the Bahamas right after that. So that was like, once we ran out of money in Asia, went to the Bahamas, worked on a boat for 3 or 4 months, then got married, and then I came out to Montana and started grad school.
Okay, I'm gonna repeat all that.
Okay, I'm gonna ask a question.
Yeah.
Do you want to repeat that first?
Okay, so Costa Rica.
Yep.
Back home for the summer.
Yep.
Next, the winter Telluride.
Yep.
So you meet up in Telluride.
She came out to New Hampshire, and then we drove out.
Okay.
We built out a Subaru and camped our way out.
You built out a Subaru.
Of course.
Most people build out a van. You built out a Subaru.
It's coffin bunks.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Like stacked on top of each other?
Well, it was like we had some storage underneath, but literally like you had 2, like a foot and a half to slide in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was tight.
It was tight.
That was
It was
awesome.
fucking winter, so we had like a 0-degree double sleeping bag.
You mean driving across?
Yeah.
Okay. So lifties and Telluride. And then went to Idaho.
Yep.
So did you already like have all the rafting skills?
No.
Okay.
Yep.
How'd you get those?
I had like, I guess I would say I had like whitewater skills just from Deerwood. Like, so I could canoe and kayak and read water. But I hadn't rowed for shit.
Okay.
But thankfully for us, they were down a couple guides and needed some bodies for that summer. And so they put us through like 3 training trips on the river that we were going to be guiding on. And then we're kind of like, and I think we actually only ended up doing 2. And then they were like, all right, you guys are good.
Okay.
Get some guests and you'll figure it out.
Got it. Okay. So that's awesome. Okay. So then summer in Idaho.
Yep.
Okay. Then Bali, Indonesia, Philippines.
Yep. Yeah.
For the winter.
Yeah. That was kind of like fall. So that would have been September, October, November.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what?
And then we came back for the holidays before going to the Bahamas.
Okay.
To work on the yacht.
Okay.
Yeah.
What'd you do on the yacht?
I was a deckhand. Bria was a stewardess. So,
dude,
I don't know if you've watched Below Deck at all.
I haven't.
It's worth watching maybe like 1 episode just to get a sense of it because it's pretty spot on.
Okay.
But,
oh, is it?
Yeah.
Like that's like the lifestyle?
Yeah, I think like our boat was interesting. I think it could have been really fun if we were on a bigger boat with more people and we're like moving around. Our dude,
like the owner of the boat or something?
The owner of the boat. He asked us to refer to him as Papa Doug.
That's right.
Yeah, we talked about Papa Doug a little bit.
Papa Doug.
Yeah, so he had this big old villa on Nassau or in Lyford Key, and he would keep his boat there at his main spot. And he'd basically just use the boat as like a a wine and dine kind of thing. He like, I'll fly you on the PJ down to the Bahamas. We'll go out for lunch on the boat. But
Fly friends and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he'd like stay in his house. And we'd take the boat out like, for like a couple days when he was there every month. But otherwise it was just kind of like maintenance, cleaning it. We took it out for one longer charter, which was pretty cool.
So you just like lived on the boat and got paid?
Yeah, you live on the boat, you get paid.
But I mean, like if you guys weren't using it that often.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So it would be tied up. We'd essentially do like would have like a wash schedule. So as like a deckhand, I was responsible for the exterior of the boat.
Do you scratch it, bro?
No, man.
Hey, Papa Doug, you have a scratch on that.
Literally, my job was like get things wet, then dry them off, and then like undo zippers and then zip things back up. That's what being a deckhand is on a yacht. I don't tell you.
Got it.
And then Bria was a stewardess, and her job was brutal. She was more like wait staff and also like scrubbing toilets, interior. There's a great story that she tells to like kind of encapsulate our time on the yacht was, I think it was day 12 of a 15-day charter, and she's like down like scrubbing like her eighth toilet bowl of the day that has to clean, and she looks up out of a porthole and she sees me like wrapping around on a jet ski, like warming it up for the guests before they go out.
And you're like, I'm having a great time.
So there's a bit of an imbalance there. It's also like all the dudes around the exterior this is like not always the case, but for us it was very much like the dudes are the deck crew, and all the ladies work the inside.
Okay. She should have got a better job, I guess.
Just how Papa Doug likes it, I guess.
All right.
Yeah. And that was Bahamas. And then got married in the springtime, spent a summer at camp, and then came out to Montana.
Awesome.
Sight unseen.
Cool.
Yeah.
I was going to ask if you have thought about this, or if you reminded, because you like, as you tell these stories with your wife, I'm like, oh, Will sounds exactly like his parents.
Yeah.
Like, that's exactly what they were doing with you, like all this wild shit. And also saying that you weren't really a river guide, but you figured it out was kind of how you spoke of your father. Just he'll figure things out. So sounds like you're exactly like them.
That's cool.
Yeah. I don't know.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, most people haven't done any of those things in their life. Like most people get a job and get out of college and get a job, and then, or don't go to college and then get a job and then try to pay off debt, and
yeah,
they don't get to like. There's something liberating about not having any belongings except for what's in a backpack and being like, I got like $2,000, and when I run out, I'm gonna buy a plane ticket home on a credit card.
Yeah,
like I think people should, especially when you're young, right? Like people should do that. It is so fun and so liberating, and it's a feeling that'll stay with you for the rest of your life. There's this interesting idea that like your whole life is made up of memories, right? And so if you think about your life, like if you were to aggregate all of the positive memories that you have in your life, like that's the goal, is to like add them all up, and you should have a lot more positive memories than negative ones. And I think it's just an interesting idea of like, if you don't do those things, then you're missing out on not only just the experience, you're missing out on the memory of having that memory for the rest of your life, and stacking that positive memory on another one, on another one, on another one. It's like, it's like kind of like compound interest, right? It's like compound investing, but with your memories.
Yeah. Yeah. It's,
and it can go the other way too.
Totally.
Right? So it's like,
that's like,
you might as well fucking balance it out a little bit.
Totally.
Because you're going to have some bad ones in there.
I think that's great. And I think like I feel incredibly lucky, because I think like at that time in my life, I had, there were a lot of safety nets in place. Like I can always like, oh fuck, if I like run out of money or if something happens, I can go home and like I can I can wait till summer comes around and I'll go back to camp and like make a little money, and then we'll start over. And it's just interesting, like trying to stay. I don't know, in some ways, like trying to stay like really asset light in like a lot of different parts of my life. So like that is more like in reach at any one point in time.
Is it asset light or is it like burden light?
Yeah, maybe that's a better way to put it.
Yeah, like relieve the burden.
Yeah.
Like if the asset is a burden, figure out how you make sure it's not a burden.
I was gonna say they can be one and the same sometimes, like depending on the asset, can be a burden.
Yeah, they can be, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like figure out how to make that asset not a burden, right? Like put your parents had a house and they rented it out, so it was an asset that was not a burden.
Yep. 100%. Yeah. And I think that is like that philosophy too is like it's just interesting, like conversations that Bria and I have like had over, like Bria's 34 and we've like haven't really thought. I mean, we've talked a lot about like what we want our lives to look like and like what we still want to do and the things we still want to do. And it's like I never would have thought of it like when I was younger, but like having a conversation like, oh, like all right, maybe we don't have kids and like that's what this looks like. And we just like kind of pour into like establishing our foundation here in Bozeman and like get the systems in place that'll allow us to do the things that we really like to do and that bring us joy. And like, yeah, maybe that's not how I imagined it like when I was little, but that could be like how this works out really well. But at the same time, I think like small chunks. So it's like, all right, we'll reevaluate this in like X amount of time and see where we're at. Yeah, but it's interesting. Like I think that's definitely something that is like we think about a lot in the decisions that we make and like wanting to have a community and establish ourselves here, but also be able to rent the house out, drop the dog off,
right,
do something else.
Yeah, makes sense.
No.
Got any banger questions, Kyle?
I'm gonna come up with one. Well, actually, okay, we'll do this. What's one thing about yourself that you would like to change that you're working on, or that maybe you aren't working on, but maybe you think you should? I went straight for it.
I like it.
We went from
I think I want to feel like allow myself to be more emotional and feel more emotion. I think that's something that I used to do. But I feel like you're
like blocking it out.
Yeah. Or just like, I guess like kind of smothered it with like, I think my reaction to certain things now is like immediately like logical. Like, okay, like where does this fit in? Like, does this actually matter? Like, what are the next steps that I have to do to like, to move the needle in one direction or another?
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to like letting myself just like sit in it and feel what it feels like.
Yeah.
So I guess like maybe a better way of saying that is like trying to like fix things right away, or like trying to always like come up with next steps as opposed to feeling what that actually feels like.
Do you want to feel it and then throw that sorry board across the room?
Yeah. That probably feel pretty good.
I got you. Yeah. You said somewhere deep inside you still wanted to.
Yeah. It's there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably how I'd answer it. I think finding a better balance between being able to like weather those shitty times or challenging times or really positive times and know what to do versus being able to like really let myself kind of feel those swings. And I think maybe that's like a self-protection thing that I've like learned from.
Yeah, everybody does it, man. Like the world's a fucking tough place to be in.
Yeah.
And so like it would make sense that you're like kind of ignoring certain things, pushing them away because they're uncomfortable. Yeah, that's a good one.
Have you guys been asked that question?
No, man, this is our podcast.
No, I love it.
That's why we sit over here.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's a good question. Yeah, maybe I think like maybe a tangible one. I think I want to write more. I think I want to journal more.
Mm-hmm.
That was like when I think back to parts of my life that I was like really stoked on. I like was writing about it. Yeah, I don't know. I think I have like this vision of myself during like those travel days and during those like earlier like vagabond times where I have like this idyllic vision of or version of myself that I like want to get back to pieces of it. Whether that's writing, whether that's like I used to like write like raps and like freestyle with friends and do that, and like it's still fun to bust out like now and again. But I don't do it a lot. So yeah, I think there's.
What was your rapper's name?
Oh, I think it was generic. I think it was Willie B.
All right.
Willie B. And you're definitely not even the whitest rapper we've had on here.
I love that.
You had one rapper that's even whiter than you on here.
Yeah.
Yes. It's great. Yeah, it's fun. It's like it's a fun headspace. You guys should try it.
I don't got anything yet. You're up again.
Okay.
I'm still ruminating.
What advice would you give yourself from 3 years ago?
Okay. 3 years ago, 2021, fall.
It doesn't have to be exactly 3 years ago, but
on the day.
It's being specific.
Well, this one day I went outside without a jacket.
Yeah, just wear a jacket.
Hang in there with us, everybody.
We'll cut this out. It'll be a quick answer.
This is what it looked like.
Take your time.
This is what it looked like to be thoughtful.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I have a great answer. I think like that was for me, that was like finishing up I'd finished up school. That was me coming back and like starting like working construction, just like trying to make it work in Bozeman. Yeah, to be honest, I don't know if I'd have advice from that time. That was kind of a day-to-day time for me.
Okay.
So I don't think that I don't know if I would have had a lot of advice to give.
All right.
At that point. Sorry to dodge your question.
Okay, so you probably kind of already answered this, but maybe you've got a different perspective on it too. What do you think's like the most important or one of the coolest things you've learned from your parents? So you kind of answered it already because we realized your life kind of mirrored theirs, but so maybe that was it, but maybe you got more to weigh in on that.
Yeah, no, I think what we kind of mentioned before on like betting on yourself, and knowing that like you'll make it work, like whatever it is you end up choosing, whether that's like a place to live or a job, like bet on yourself. I think it's also cool. They have like my mom and dad have a very like, they're both very incredibly independent. And so it's cool to see that like I've like learned so many amazing lessons on like from their relationship style on just the different ways that like a partnership can work and can function. And I think like we all take things that we like want and leave other things that we don't want from the relationships that or from like our parents and our grandparents and those that we see around us. But it's I think that's a cool part of their relationship, how they're both incredibly independent, have their very unique interests, but are able to like function really well together as a pair. Excuse me.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah, that's probably like could be a great reason why they do. It's because of that independence.
Yeah,
it's kind of hard to function when you're smothered.
Totally.
Yeah. Kyle?
What are you currently afraid of?
Yeah, I'm afraid that I am like destined to like have a million different jobs in my life. I think like I do things for a short amount of time and like I don't know, I guess like quick in my mind, like quick to master and move on. And I hope that like I'm afraid that I'm gonna find something good or that I've found something good, but I'm gonna like get antsy and be like, all right, let's move on to the next. Yeah.
So you're afraid of it because like you feel like maybe that's your impatience is a flaw, or that you are going to move on too quickly and not be able to come back to it.
I think mostly just that my impatience is a flaw. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of double edged. I think like I get impatient. I get like anxious about what I'm supposed to be doing, what I want to do. I get interested in other things. But I think like or I don't know, maybe this is part of it too. Like maybe I'm worried that like if I stay in one spot for too long, then like thinking that there's going to be some comfort or like stability that comes at the end of it, and then realize that that's not there, and be like, oh, I just put in all this time into something that I was an idea and that I thought I was going to want, but that I don't actually want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta, you gotta try things to find out. There's no other way. So it might not be a flaw at all. It could be like something that keeps you not bored out of your mind.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can only speak for myself, but I'd be more afraid of doing the same thing my whole life. Be like, well, I never tried anything else because this was safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like like the old like Western movies, they have a saloon door, right? It's a two-way door, and you can go in or out it. So like it's not like you can't go back to something.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times we think that like, oh my God, if I leave this job or whatever, like, that's it. But it's like, yeah, you can come back to it. Yeah, I would also say like people who stay in the same job, if they don't like it, but they stay because of like security reasons, I think over time that does, that like deteriorates people, and they like kind of lose their soul over time. And so like those people could have, I guess maybe patience isn't the right word, but like those people could be like suffering, and they're unnecessarily suffering in a job that they should have left 10 or 15 years ago. But it's secure, and it's the right thing to do or whatever. But is it really the right thing to do if you're just suffering,
Yeah. It's interesting. I think like well, I'm kind of hearing a couple things. Like one obviously avenue that I view like work through is like, all right, this is just fundamentally like this is something that allows me to like be in the place that I live, in the town that I am, that like pays for bills. But then there's also like the purpose layer of it. And if I can find a job that fulfills like those fundamental needs and have time to, pursue things that I'm passionate about or that like fill that cup, like that's kind of where the pendulum is swinging, at least right now for me, is like finding this thing that can set me up, that can create the foundation to like allow me to be in the place I want to be, like in this version of myself that I've created. And then maybe like my work doesn't have to be what lights me up. It can be good people. It can like not suck, but it doesn't have to be like, this is why I'm here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could be lit up in other ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like podcasting.
Sure. Yeah, like podcasting.
Yeah, I mean there's ways people approach that though. Like their work has to be what they're most passionate about, or their work is a means to an end. gives them funding to live their life, and then all their free and leisure time is to fulfill all those other. It's kind of, you can square it a million different ways. It's whatever kind of works for the time in your life. And it's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, and at least for me, like recognizing that, like you said, there's a lot of different ways too, and there's not I don't think there's like a right way necessarily.
Yeah.
There's like, yeah, and I think like there's a lot that gets glorified in terms of like, yeah, you see like outdoor videos of whether it's raft guides or like lifties, and they're living the life, and it's fucking awesome. But then there's like the dark underbelly of like
they're fucking broke.
Financial hardship that comes with that, like the fucking like suicide rates in mountain towns, like you name it. Like there's a lot of shit that comes that's like the underbelly of these like fast-paced, hardcore, beautiful lifestyles. But there's like, it's.
Let's talk about suicide rates in mountain towns. I didn't know that was like a trend or like a. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I think like the let's see, there was a film screening last year that was put on at the Bozeman Public Library that was like a kind of a case study, I think, on Aspen. And it kind of did a deep dive on like kind of Aspen as a case study, as an example, mountain town, and basically the struggles that community is facing with mental health. And I'm gonna get out of my lane here like really quick.
Okay, yeah, but whatever. It can be a theory.
Yeah, but like I think like the part of the message that is trying to be like, or part of what they were saying is like, there are these so the people that are able to like coming and working jobs as lift operators or are coming and like working seasonally, they're I think like I don't want to like put them all in, like I don't want to pigeonhole anyone, but I think like there's a lot of like stress that comes with that, whether it's like finding places to live or like basically saying like, oh, what are we gonna do, like what am I gonna do after this? And there's like a huge like, and like even talking with some friends,
it's like it's not a secure like environment, and it's not a very like safe and secure. I would imagine it's like it's very volatile.
Super volatile, and like a huge.
I mean, it's all seasonal work is super volatile.
Yeah, and like not knowing what the next step's going to be, and I think like, even just anecdotally from like friends that have worked up in Big Sky and lived up there, like when you're living like kind of in that isolated, like away from a town, you're like all there is, you kind of just party, and that's your social thing, and then there's a lot like there's a lot that comes with that, and so I think, and I'd have to. Excuse me. I'd have to like dive deeper into what the stats are, but based on like that case study, and they were kind of expanding it out to other kind of like big mountain towns. And I think it's like, it's a tricky thing that there's often not a lot of resources available for people that like maybe in that transient like lifestyle, working through mental health stuff, might not have awesome insurance or availability for that care that they need at that point in time. And I think like, there's like kind of a correlation in terms of that kind of location and longer winter months. I mean, you name it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
There's a gal I met that described Big Sky to me as Neverland, because you never have to grow up. Like she was like kind of saying how great it was and then how terrible it was. I guess the other flip side of that is there's like, and I haven't seen any documentary on this, but there's people that work the same steady job for 40 years and are very unhappy and depressed. So I mean, somewhere along there, there's a balance, and it's kind of contextual to every person and their age and their life situation.
Totally. Yeah. I think that's.
Yeah.
I mean, at the right age, like both are probably really fun and really important for various reasons.
Yeah.
Depending on if you have 10 kids or if you're single and young, or
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I took us down a tangent.
No, it's all good.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of what's on my list.
Yeah, I don't know what's on my list these days. So what else are you up to? What are you trying to do these days
Yeah.
besides what you're doing?
Besides what I'm doing.
Any big plans with the future?
Big future plans. Let's see. No, I think like just trying to
Any
find
fun trips coming up the winter?
Let's see. Nothing crazy. We're gonna do a big road trip. So Bree and I have this big like 80-pound dog named Ulu, who Kyle is familiar with. Who's a blast, but can be a bit much sometimes. But
Was he at your house recently or no?
Yeah.
Like when I picked up that stuff last weekend?
Was it a big black dog?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I met him.
Cool. Yeah.
It's like, what's his dog's name? Yeah, because Katie was there.
Yeah, he's a blast. We're gonna stuff him into our Subaru and drive down to San Luis Obispo, California, over 2 days and spend some time with Bria's family down there, and which would be good. But yeah, I think like honestly this winter just trying to like trying to see friends as much as we can, get out, go skiing, just be outside. I think like giving ourselves permission to slow down a little bit is a big thing. I think like there's a lot of just FOMO, like in like having different friend groups that are always like full throttle and doing lots of things. So being also okay with, we like call them like layover days from the river terminology, like taking a day to just like do nothing, hang out, read a book, take a walk with the dog, finding like ways to build that in, and feel good about that.
I did that this Sunday and I had to like talk myself through it.
Yeah.
It's like stressed out that I didn't have a million things to do. I'm like, it's good.
Totally.
It's all right. Just relax.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think, it takes a lot to like not find a project for yourself, or like that's definitely like when I don't have anything to do, I think I make things for myself to do as well. So it's definitely has to be very intentional.
Yeah.
What about you guys? What do you have coming up?
I got a family trip to Costa Rica coming up.
There we go.
Middle of January.
Where in Costa Rica?
Like Nicoya.
Yeah, cool. Nicoya Peninsula.
Yeah,
cool.
Never been to Costa Rica, so
They'll dig it.
Looking forward to that. Looking forward to getting in the water, doing some more surfing.
Love it.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing really. I'm just trying to relax a little bit because it's about to get really busy for me in December.
Is that with
the transportation, the driving? Yeah.
Cool. How many in your fleet?
Three
Cool.
this winter. So
cool.
Yeah, hopefully they're all on the road every day.
Yeah,
that's a goal.
Yeah. That's your holiday season, big spike.
Yeah, it'll like right. I mean, kind of after Thanksgiving till skiing's done.
Wow.
April. So
damn. Yeah. Hell yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So just trying to be okay with just not being crazy busy until then.
Yep.
But getting ready.
Yeah. Knowing that it will be busy, but
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Let's wrap it up.
Yeah.
I love it.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, man.
Thank you guys for having me. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.